السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, we continue inshallah ta'ala with the fiqh of worship, and a reminder, inshallah, everyone has a way of writing to take notes, and that's kind of requirement in this class, inshallah. So please make sure that you're taking notes, and inshallah ta'ala in this session we'll talk about some of the rulings related to salah. Since we talked about the conditions of the salah and the pillars of the salah. And then we'll talk about some of the rulings, not in a particular order, but some of the rulings that is important for us to know, so we can, inshallah ta'ala, be aware of it. And the good things about learning something like the salah, a person when he prays, so he applies the ilm immediately, he applies the knowledge immediately, and it's practiced. And that's how the knowledge, the ilm, is not forgotten when a person applies it. And that's the purpose of the ilm, the knowledge, is to apply it to gain more rewards by applying it with ilm. You can be making an act of ibadah, act of worship, and you do it right. But that's difference between doing it without knowledge versus that someone would do it with knowledge. With knowledge is more rewardable that way. And it helps, of course, to perfect the ibadah and to have it with devotion, that the person is doing exactly what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from him, and other meanings in the heart. Just the fact that a person wants to learn the deen of Allah, that means that the heart has this ta'zeem and exalting the orders of Allah, that a person wants to know to apply. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us among those who learn and apply the knowledge and to enter the Jannah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Part of which is to, again, to take notes, inshallah. Some of the rulings again. So this session is just some of the rulings of the salah, not in a particular order, even though we should go by the orders of what usually the ulama mention in the subject of salah or fiqh in general. But I thought just because of many questions come sometimes with some certain things in salah, so just briefly some of it, inshallah. We talked about the awrah, or covering the awrah, as part of the condition of the salah for the awrah to be covered. And the awrah for a man is from the navel to the knees. And that is the awrah in the salah and outside of the salah. But in the salah, the person should have something on his shoulders when he's making salah. So wearing a shirt that covers his shoulder or his shoulders. And for the woman, she is permissible for her to show her face, and with the others, meaning to just the face, and the rest is to be covered. But it doesn't have to be, she doesn't have to wear gloves or to wear socks, as long as she would have her hands underneath the khimar, underneath the scarf when she's making salah. And that's why for the woman in the salah, she should have a scarf that comes down, khimar, comes down from the head, covers the shoulders and goes down. And for the foot, it doesn't have to be covered with socks, but when she's standing, she should cover her foot. The garment should be long enough to cover the foot. If the bottom of her foot shows in the sujood, there's no harm. And this is, again, with regards to the difference of opinions, this is what Allahu Alam is to be done, inshallah ta'ala. So this is a mas'ala. Another subject is the issue of the niyyah, which is also one of the conditions of the salah. The niyyah, when a person has an intention in the salah, as we know that the intentions are of two meanings to it. The intention for the deed to be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, a person has to do it sincerely for the sake of Allah. That's for every action that a person do. But the niyyah from the fiqh perspective, that makes or differentiate between one salah or the other. Praying dhuhr versus asr versus maghrib, praying fard versus nafl, things like this. So the intention, of course, is important here. And the question here is, can a person change his intention while in the salah? As we said before, the intention is in the heart, and it's not something to be uttered or to be said, because this is not the way the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ never spoke, never said anything about the niyyah. The niyyah is in the heart. You know what you're praying. But if you are already in the salah, can you change your niyyah while in the salah? Like for example, you're praying Asr. And while you're praying Asr, you remembered that you didn't pray Dhuhr. You were traveling, for example, and you didn't pray Dhuhr yet. So can you, while you are in Asr prayer, that's how you enter the salah with that intention, can you change your niyyah to make it Salatul Dhuhr instead? The answer for that particular question is no, you cannot. So can a person, for example, change his niyyah from Maghrib to Asr? No, it's not permissible. Can a person, so from Fard to Fard, it's not permissible. And I'll tell you, inshallah ta'ala, the principle how to make or to remember these things easy, inshallah. Can a person change his intention from Sunnah al-Dhuhr, for example? He was praying Sunnah al-Dhuhr to make it the Fard of Salat al-Dhuhr. Right? Can a person change that intention during the Salah? No, it's not permissible. Can a person change the niyyah while praying Salatul Dhuhr to make it Sunnatul Dhuhr? No, it's not permissible if he's in the Salah. Can a person pray or change his intention from just any Nafl Salah to Fard Salah? No, that's not permissible. Can a person change his intentions from a Nafl Salah to a Sunnah Salah, a particular Sunnah, from just praying 2 rak'ah to make it Sunnatul Dhuhr, for example? That's not permissible. And I hope that you're following with me, inshallah. Can a person change his intention from Fard Salah to make it Nafl Salah? The answer is yes, it's permissible. So this is another one. Can a person change his intention from Sunnatul Dhuhr to be Nafl Salah? Yes, it's permissible. So here there are some things are permissible and some other things are not permissible. So what's the principle? What's the qa'idah that we follow in this? It's very easy and simple. And that is anything from, like if we look at there's nafila. Again, we're talking about the terminologies of the fiqh. Nafila is the salah, nafl is the salah that is not a particular sunnah, just optional salah. Night prayers, things like this. Sunnah salah, when we say sunnah salah in fiqh, that means we're talking about the 12 rak'ah sunnah. Sunnatul Fajr, Sunnatul Dhuhr, Sunnatul Maghrib, Sunnatul Isha, like this. And the fard is the fard. So we have now 3 salawat: nafl, sunnah, and fard. Right? And I hope that you're following with me, inshallah, here. You can go from the very top to the very bottom. If the fard is the top and the nafl is the very bottom and the sunnah is in the middle, right? So you can go from the fard all the way to the bottom, which is from fard to nafl. It's okay to do that, right? But it's not okay to go from anything lower to anything higher. So the only way that you can do from anything higher is to the lowest, meaning you can go from fard to nafl. You can go from sunnah to nafl. Okay, so these are the 2 permissible means to change the niyyah during the salah, from fard to nafl or from sunnah to nafl. You cannot go from fard to sunnah, right? Going down, you cannot go from fard to sunnah. You have to be from fard to nafl all the way to the bottom. And the same thing for the sunnah. The other way around, it is not permissible. It's not permissible to go from nafl to sunnah or from nafl to fard. Okay, so for the 2 cases that it's permissible, from fard to nafl or from sunnah to nafl, I want you, okay, so that's, if someone is confused about this, write down fard and underneath it sunnah and underneath it nafl. Okay, write this down. Fard, underneath it sunnah, underneath it nafl. Okay, so the permissible is that you go from fard to nafl. Make an arrow, do whatever. From fard to nafl, permissible. From sunnah to nafl, permissible. Okay, anything in the opposite direction is not permissible. So no nafl to sunnah, no nafl to fard, no sunnah to fard. So I hope this is clear. The 2 cases where it's permissible, why would a person want to do that? Sometimes you have to do this. And one of which is that if you are in the masjid, or even if you're at home and you're praying Salatul Asr, for example, any salah, you're praying Salatul Asr, because the time of Asr entered, nobody is in the masjid, or you thought people already prayed Salatul Asr. So you start to pray Salatul Asr. Or you're at home and you're praying Salatul Asr because it's time for Asr, and you thought everybody at home prayed Salatul Asr. And then while you are in the Salah, you realize that they didn't pray Salatul Asr yet. Right? And as we said, Salatul Jama'ah is obligatory, wajib, upon men. Men, they have to pray Salatul Fard in Jama'ah. This is wajib, this is mandatory. Unless there's no one to pray with, what can you do? You have to pray anyway. So even if you missed the Salah in the masjid, then pray Jama'ah at home. Make sure that Salatul Fard, you pray Jama'ah. Whether you are a traveler or not traveler, at any condition, you pray Salatul Fard in Jama'ah. Unless you're not able to, then that's a different situation. Then you pray it, and that's permissible in this case. So again, a person making Salatul Asr in the masjid or at home, and then he realized that people didn't pray Salatul Jama'ah yet. They didn't pray Salatul Asr yet. The Iqamah is being made, or you saw that they're coming to make Iqamah or something like this. In that case, while you are praying, you're praying Salatul Asr. You can change your intention to make it from Salatul Asr to just an optional Salah. You just make it nafl. And you finish the Salah, you make Salam, and then you join the Salatul Asr with the people. Right? So if you had the intention to make it 4, continue as 4, right? And then make Salam. Or if they're making Iqamah, of course, then you stop the Salah and you join the Jama'ah. Okay, so this is a valid reason for you to change your intentions in this case. Or you're praying Sunnat al-Dhuhr, for example, and while you're praying, you realize that you already prayed Sunnat al-Dhuhr. So just make it with your intention that this is Nafl Salah. So from Fard to Nafl or from Sunnah to Nafl, this is all permissible, inshallah ta'ala. Right? So what happens if you're praying Salatul Asr and realize that you didn't pray Dhuhr? Right? What would you do? You're already praying Salatul Asr, and then you remembered that you didn't pray Dhuhr in the Salah. Continue Salatul Asr, no problem. Don't break your intention. And after you finish Salatul Asr, pray Salatul Dhuhr. And after you finish Salatul Asr, pray Salatul Dhuhr. So this is with the change of the intention in the Salah. If you have any questions, we'll leave that inshallah ta'ala to the end. So hopefully this is clear. You put your notes together in the right way, inshallah ta'ala. Another change of the intention of the Salah is that you are praying as munfarid, someone, you're praying alone, and then you change your intentions to be an imam. Right? Or you're ma'moom, you're praying behind an imam, and then you become munfarid, you're praying on your own. Right? So how is that permissible? It's permissible when you are, praying alone, and someone joins you in the Salah, then you become an imam. You don't have to say anything. You become an imam. And that's a very important thing, is because sometimes people, when they join someone in the Salah, and the person that you joined, they do not know the ruling, or they did not intend to be an imam. So what happened? Your Salah is not valid to follow him. So you joined someone in the Salah, you came late for the masjid, and people were praying, making up what they've missed from the Salah, and you joined someone next to him. You said Allahu Akbar, and you meet that person, your imam. And you felt the imam is not saying Allahu Akbar loud. Right? You stand next to him. If it was a silent Salah, he doesn't raise his voice because it's a normal thing. But then when he said Allahu Akbar to make ruku', he did not say it loud. That means he's not being an imam. So what do you do in this case? You make your ruku', but you depart from that person with your intention. You're praying alone now. Do not follow that person, because it's not permissible to follow someone as an imam when he's not being an imam. Right? So your Salah is valid. You don't have to leave the Salah, but you cannot continue with him while he did not make his intention as an imam. And how would you know the intention? Is that he did not raise his voice, for example. Right? So this is someone that, the ma'moom becomes alone, and then he becomes an imam. All of that is valid change of intentions in the Salah. So this is the mas'ala that we needed to mention, inshallah. Salah is, as we said before, that with the tahara, with the purification, that you have to be pure in your body, in your clothing, the place that you pray on. And that's why there are certain places where it's not permissible for a person to pray on. You cannot pray وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, in the bathroom, for example, or in where the places that are impure, or the places where the camels they stand and they're stationed. Goats and sheep is okay. Of course, nobody would willingly to do this. It's not something that is applicable to many people. But since the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the rulings apply under any condition, no matter what people are, in whatever place they are. So there are people that this is how their life is. So we have to differentiate between what's najis, what's impure, and what's you might consider dirty or not pleasant or whatever. Like teen, for example. Mud is not najis, is not impure. So if someone has mud on his foot, for example, after he made wudu and everything, the salah is valid. Why? Because mud is pure. Mud is not impure. So we have to differentiate between what's impure and what's you might not feel clean or things of that nature. Also, if a person is not able to know the qibla, right, you have to make ijtihad. You have to put the effort to know where the qibla, if you're in a place where you don't know where the qibla. Now, you have the ease of looking at an app or something like this. But, or if you're in a place, you know that the qibla is northeast. This is for the entire country, for example. So you can ask, if you don't know the directions, where's north and south and east and west. If you don't know the directions, then you can ask someone, where's north from here? Where's south from here? People who are familiar of the area. And then you can figure out where northeast or so, and you can make your salah. So you have to put the effort. If you put the effort and you end up praying in a direction other than the qibla, your salah is valid and you don't have to repeat it. Right? So that with the condition that you put the effort to know the qibla, the direction of the qibla. Another mas'ala, and that's maybe I can leave more time today for the questions because of these issues. The last one that we can talk about today is praying in one's shoes, right? We're not talking about wiping over the socks or the shoes. We talked about that before. And whatever you wipe over, it should be covering what you should wash if you don't have socks or shoes. So the foot, it goes all the way to the end of the ankle where starts the shin. So it's okay to pray in one's shoes. It's from the Sunnah actually of the Prophet ﷺ, that the Prophet ﷺ would pray in his shoes. But of course, in the masajid, right, we take our shoes off so that we don't make the carpet smell bad or things like this. And this is harms and cause harm to the musallin. So this is why we're taking the shoes off, not because this is the deen or so that we have to take our shoes off. It's just to keep the masjid clean from the bad smell and things like this, and to make it easy for people, because it's carpet. So since there's carpet, the carpet has to be treated the way people treat carpet with. But anyway, so this is something that becomes the norm. So it is not permissible for someone to say, well, that's from the sunnah, so let me just step on it and I don't care. Unless the masjid, they decided to do that, which is most of the masjid, they don't do that. So, but if a person is at home or in somewhere outside or so, and they want to pray, there is no need to take your shoes off, because it's valid without having any takalluf. That's part of the deen, part of the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that a person don't go out of his way to do things. Just pray in your shoes. Another issue here with the shoes, and I just want to mention this because this is something some of the ulama they mentioned, because the shoes nowadays, sometimes most of the time they're very tough and your toes are inside, and you won't feel your toes when you're in sujood. So some had mentioned that since this is not the way that it was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, and since your toes should be touching the ground, sometimes the tough shoes and steel toes, for example, you might not be able to put your toes on the ground. So what's the ruling here? It's okay to wear them, right? But it's always better to make sure that your toes are touching the ground. Your toes are touching, not the bare toes, but I'm just saying you feel your toes on the ground. So praying in the shoes, as long as there's no najasa in the bottom. So, and again, najasa does not mean mud, does not mean dust. It means najasa, means something impure. Your human feces, for example, or something like this. Then it's not permissible. You have to rub it good on the ground so that you can pray in it. And also, I mean, if a person has a choice whether to pray with shoes or to take the shoes off, as we said, the sunnah is not necessarily that you don't take your shoes off, and it's not the sunnah to take your shoes off. The sunnah is to do whatever is easy for you. There's no obligation or what's recommended on one way or the other. For example, if you're wearing a boots or heavy shoes, then you cannot sit really in tashahhud the way that you would like to sit. So it's easy for you to take your shoes off because you want to sit properly in the tashahhud. Sure, no problem. But if you're outside and to take the shoes off, it's difficult and things like this, then keep your shoes on. So do whatever is easy for you. With the subject of the shoes, do whatever is easy for you. Do not do something to make it difficult for yourself. And as a principal matters of the deen with the najasat and so on, you do not rule about something that has najasa unless it's for certainty. So do not open the door of waswas and whispers of the shaitan. People would say that probably a dog walked here, or maybe there's someone. People when they pray in their office, for example, in school or something, there's carpet, and people would say people walk with their shoes to the bathroom and they come out and they walk on these carpets. I'm talking about the normal conditions. People now they get their prayer rugs or something like that because of this pandemic. It's a different situation here, but in the norm situation, that people they become extreme in these matters, which is not part of the deen. If you don't see with your own eyes any impurity and you don't smell it, or you don't smell it, or you don't taste it, but I don't know who would ever do that. But I'm just saying, if the najasa is not clear on the ground, do not assume things, right? Do not assume that maybe someone, maybe this, maybe that. This is not a valid assumptions to be in one's mind when a person is making salah. So pray and be at ease. Don't ask for a prayer rug. Don't make sure that you pray. People do that at home even when they take their shoes off, when they enter their homes and they don't walk with their shoes inside of the home. So the home is clean, the floor is clean, and they still, before they make salah, they have to put the prayer rug. You don't need to do all of this. You can pray on whatever rug, right? So don't make extreme actions thinking that this is what is appropriate for the salah. So this is, I just wanted to mention that with the shoes. I'll stop here because of the time, inshallah. If you have any questions, go ahead, and I hope that these masail or these issues you had wrote it down and it's clear, inshallah. Okay, the first question: من الأعلى إلى الأقل يجوز. من الأعلى إلى أدنى الأدنى إلى أدنى الدنو وليس فقط إلى الأقل. From the highest to the lowest, not from a high to a lower, right? So it's from fard all the way to nafl, yes, but not from fard to sunnah. From the fard to the nafl, from the sunnah to the nafl. This is what's permissible now. Salatul istikhara considered nafl salah. Salatul istikhara considered can be sunnah or can be nafl. Because Salatul istikhara, the Prophet ﷺ said, إذا هم أحدكم بالأمر فليصلي ركعتين من دون الفريضة. Prophet ﷺ said, if one of you is about to do a decision or so, then let him pray 2 rak'ah other than the fard salah. So that means it can be sunnah to dhuhr, 2 rak'ah of sunnah to dhuhr, the first 2 rak'ah, and you make an istikhara after the 2 rak'ah, or sunnah to al-fajr. Or you can make it optional salah, nafl salah, without sunnah. So salatul istikhara is not a salah by itself. Is any salah other than the fard that you would make the dua of al-istikhara after the 2 rak'ah. What is the ruling on combining intentions? For example, walking into masjid for fajr, pray 2 rak'ah to count for both tahiyyatul masjid and sunnatul fajr. Is this okay? There is no need for such a thing, right? You're walking to the masjid, either you prayed sunnatul fajr or you didn't pray sunnatul fajr. If you did not pray sunnatul fajr, then you pray sunnatul fajr, and that's it. You're praying Sunnatul Fajr. Inshallah, by the mercy of Allah, you'll get the reward of Tahiyatul Masjid, since you would not sit unless you pray. You would get the reward of praying after you make wudu, if that's what happened to be after wudu. So there's no need for multiple intentions. And some people, they talk about multiple intentions as gaining more rewards and so on. No, you are praying Sunnatul Fajr. You're not praying something else. And the Prophet ﷺ would pray Sunnatul Fajr or Sunnatul Dhuhr. But you get the rewards, yes. Seek rewards from Allah, that's a different situation. But your niyyah is Sunnat al-Fajr and nothing else. من الفرض أو السنة إلى النفل. نعم. That's correct. بارك الله فيكم. What is the proper way to join someone to notify him to become the Imam? I've suddenly tapped his shoulder, but I'm not sure if that's right. It whatever works. Like, for example, nowadays, if there's already distance between people, a person would not know that someone had joined them in the Salah. So maybe you can tap his shoulder in this case. But if someone doesn't know the rulings, you might, if you, and this is something that you have to use your judgment. If someone that doesn't look like he has a knowledge of this matter, you might tap his shoulder and you look back and see what's going on. That invalidates his salah. So if something like that would be done to some people, that's fine. But in the normal way, where a person just stand next to the person in the salah, that's very obvious that he is joining him in the salah. Right? So in that case, you don't have to tap on the shoulder. So it's only to be whatever means of getting his attention. Can you change niyyah from fard to nafl? Yes, as we said, you can change the niyyah from fard to nafl, but not the opposite. If you make intention of 3 rak'ah witr, can you change your intention to 1 rak'ah while doing salah, or vice versa? No, you should keep it as 3. You should keep it as 3. And you should not change from 3 to 1. And if you prayed with the intention of praying 2 rak'ah, do not make it 1 rak'ah. Or if you're praying 2 rak'ah and you forgot and you made a third by mistake, do not say, well, let's make this witr. No. Then you sit right away and make sujood sahw. Okay, barakallah fikum. I hope inshallah it's clear, and we continue inshallah ta'ala next time with some of these rulings. And we'll stop here inshallah. Sallallahu sallam barak Muhammad wa sahbihi wa sallam. سبحانك اللهم ربنا وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.